What's the Stockholm Syndrome? The Stockholm Syndrome is a syndrome that people have that they almost want to stay in the horrible place they already are in. Why is it called Stockholm Syndrome? You explain what it means. There were captives in Sweden. I don't know if it was 70, 80 years ago. They were captives. They were hostages. And people came, police force, the army came to save these 4 hostages. And the hostages were so sort of brainwashed to their scenario that they helped the captors. They helped the people that were holding them hostage against the army that came to save them. And you would have said, what? You're being held hostage by these people. Why are you helping them? The answer is something called Stockholm Syndrome. And that story happened in Stockholm, Sweden. A syndrome where I'm in captivity and you start to like it. To an outsider, it doesn't make sense. But to an insider, you see it sadly often. You'll see someone who's in a terrible marriage and you say, why are you staying in this marriage? The answer is Stockholm Syndrome. You'll see someone who has a terrible addiction and they know it's ruining their life. Why are you staying this way? Why don't you fix it? Stockholm Syndrome. You'll see people who are really depressed. Change it. Stockholm Syndrome. You see people who are in a horrible job and they know they're better than this. Why are you staying in the job? They're afraid to leave. Stockholm Syndrome. And I hate to say it, looking around at our community, there are many people who right now who it looks like they're suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. And what I mean is they're so confused and full of so much fear that they're literally paralyzed. They don't want to move. Go outside. Everyone agrees this part is not dangerous. They don't want to. They're afraid to. They won't go into a room, even with social distance and people spread apart and mask. They won't go in because they're suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. This mental thing that got them frozen into place. If you're one of those people, or if your parents are one of those people, please identify this challenge that we're facing. That sometimes the concern has turned into fear, that's turned into paralyzation. That's what Stockholm Syndrome means. We get used to suffering, or we get used to a certain mentality. Fear, confusion, negativity starts to play with our brain and we get paralyzed. So how do we stop any type of fear or any negative habit? That's what we're trying to address today. It's not just about what's happening around us. It's partly about that, but it could relate to any person you know who's suffering from this kind of Stockholm Syndrome. Any person you know who's in some type of negative state and doesn't want to leave it.